my internet-based telephone is telling me it's 4:02 a.m.
Conspiracies.
But yet my cell phone that keeps me up to date with everything in the world tells me it's 7:01 a.m. So there we go.
There you go.
Well,
there you go. It's that leap second. It's all messing up. We covered this. You heard it.
That's a leap 2 hours, man.
You heard it. You heard it first here on Talking Niagara. How the coordination between the timepieces around the world is getting kind of all messed up because of spinning Earth and unspinning Earth and gravitational pulls and all that. You heard it first, but I think it's really just a conspiracy.
While we're talking about conspiracies, I think it's a conspiracy morning, sir. Right? You got a couple of great stories that lend themselves to conspiracy theory all the way. In fact, probably came from conspiracy theory all the way.
Okay, you want something, a conspiracy? Are we on air yet?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 times I've been told there's been a murder behind the seniors building on Barker Street, the Kiwanis Seniors building behind Barker Street. 3 different people have told me there's been a murder there, that the police were there for several hours and they have had the area roped off and they talked to the people in the building, interview, see what they saw. And yet, can you think, I can't even find, and the police were there for several hours. People claim they saw the body lying there. And yet, I was told that it was a murder, but I haven't found any report of a body being found there, a murder, any kind of crime at all. So yeah. I'm asking you, and one person said it was a woman of around 30 years old. So I'm asking you, where is the report on this? Where is the Niagara Falls Review, or is this particular murder or incident being kept under wraps for the meantime?
That's a very interesting conspiracy there. There's supposed to have been about 4 a.m. on Sunday morning a sexual assault that occurred at Queen and Erie.
Well, that happened. That was there. But late Friday night, early Saturday morning, there was a murder. So I'm told, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see the body at all. But I had actually been talking to a woman on the phone who was looking at it. Looking at the cops were still there with their tape around it.
Yeah.
One person claimed they saw the body there.
Have you been to the area?
I went there afterwards, but for a different reason. I went there afterwards to make sure that the lights on the parking lot there were bright, but much later, way at nighttime when the sun went down.
Okay, so did you see any sprayed off area around the edge of the body?
No, I didn't see anything by that time. The police had been already there for a day and they'd gone, over half a day.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's start at the beginning, because this is kind of really one of those really mornings. And I'm going to be as cynical as hell all morning. So, President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is basically taking saying going to bring peace to the Middle East. Now he says Israel should finish the job in Gaza.
I'm not so sure. This article's from Vanity Fair, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I'm not so sure it has a whole lot of reality to it. I
was wondering that myself, because we all know Jared Kushner, who he is, and what his beliefs are. He's a bit of a nutcase. We know that. But I can believe
it says here that. Go ahead.
I can believe in believing this.
Yeah, but it says in 2017, and it goes on about Donald Trump making Jared Kushner. He's going to bring peace to the Middle East and all that other stuff. And yeah, he says he should be getting get the war over with quick so they could start building waterfront property. Now, it didn't say that it was going to build property. Well, number one, I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous in the first place. Number two, if he did speculate far into the future about waterfront property, it didn't say it would be for Jews. He just says it would probably be a good idea to speculate there. That would be a source of income for Gaza to have waterfront property because they have good beaches and all that other stuff. So you can imagine it could be developed into a hotel strip of some kind. Yeah. The economy of the area is being stifled from the very beginning from Israel when it left in 2005. I think it left Gaza after occupying it for nearly 20 years. Yeah.
Dare I suggest that he's actually talking about the Middle Eastern Vegas on the sea?
Maybe it's hard to say. Well, he is a developer. His father was a developer. His father went to jail. I think it's the same guy. He went to jail for they in those days they supported the Democrat Party, and he went to jail for I don't know, something to do with I don't know, corruption in the way in which he gained money. I'd have to look that up. Anyway, he got off by pretending he was too old and too weak, and so they let him off. I'm telling you, there is rich man's prison, and rich man, it's just, I don't know. Maybe he got off because he. It says here he repeated the idea later in a conversation as well as words. Finish the job. Well, first of all, finish the job. What does that mean, Jared? I do think right now they're opening up the Negev. Well, the Negev is not Gaza. The Negev is the region, the south of Israel, that part that goes down like a triangle. That's the Negev desert. Creating a secure area there, moving civilians out and going in and finishing the job. So he's saying opening up the Negev, which would be part of Israel, basically, push the people there. But
he's talking
his ideas from, right? And creating a secure area there, moving the civilians out, and then going in and finishing the job. So basically, what he's thinking of, it looks as if he's thinking move the people out. It isn't clear. Is he meaning the Palestinians out into the Negev? Let the Israeli government or IDF go in there, finish the job, and let the people come back? I'm not so sure.
I'm seeing this. Well, he's also part of this article talks about the Negev being in Egypt, and maybe part of it actually physically is. But he's also, I think he's very confused here. And this is a guy who read who was sent to the Middle East in order to produce peace. And, he read 25 books on the topic, and he really didn't do a good job on the topic, and doing a good job when he was Trump's advisor in the Middle East, so no.
Yeah, I'm like, I won't say anything other than the fact that he's a developer. He knows those things, but he's been born with a golden spoon in his mouth. I don't think he has the capabilities of understanding every ordinary day people, because he says here in a quote, I'm sitting in Miami Beach right now, and I'm looking at the situation. I'm just thinking, what would I do if I were there? Later asked about concerns that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wouldn't allow Palestinians to leave Gaza to go back, that left and go back. Kushner, with an expression that suggested he'd never considered this before, responded, maybe. I'm not sure there is much left of Gaza at this point. Well, basically, and then they get all these people saying right underneath it, disgusting, Jared Kushner. I think he's just speaking out of ignorance.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give the guy shooting on Epworth Circle, stabbing in Center Street, and someone jumped over the falls within 15 minutes last night. Holy cow. We got our ace reporter, metaphysical Mike Cushman, on the job. We should be coming on this show. Yeah, can you replace Peter? No, again, Peter's got all the electric stuff, so he could join us, metaphysical Mike. Yeah, that's something that where you're talking about there. Anyway, I don't think there's much really to this article because they put a lot of focus on Jared Kushner and his sort of ignorance of the area, his idea of developing the Gaza. It doesn't say whether he's going to be developing it for Jews or Palestinians, but maybe just for money. And how about that? But I think he's just kind of
he's more or less saying, "Give it to me. I can do this."
Yeah. I mean, the 25 books you read, are they comic books or what kind of books are they?
Thank you, Dave. I was being a bit more gracious than that, but yeah, thank you, Dave. That was exactly bang on. The 25 books he read, yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, and okay. So I'm going to keep the same note of cynicism for our next article, by the way, which is that according to analysis, Beethoven's DNA revealed that he had a low genetic predisposition for beat synchronization, an ability that's closely related to musicality. So he wasn't a musician after all.
I think this shows you the limitations of DNA. You have one of the greatest composers of all time. He's only matched by people like Bach and Mozart. You know what I mean? And Tchaikovsky. Yeah. Like he is like one of the premier dun 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 dun. Look at that simple thing what he did with that dun 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 dun. With that, it's gone down in history for over 200 years. And then they say, well, we tested our DNA, and guess what? He's not a musician. Well, later on, when they go into archaeological sites and they test the bones of other people and look at their DNA and say, well, we know this guy wasn't a musician. Well, you can't say that now anymore, can you?
No.
Right? He had no because the DNA says that according to them, he wouldn't have had the beat synchronization abilities.
The interesting thing that they did come up with is that they discovered a predisposition for liver disease and infection and possible infection of hepatitis B.
Possibly.
He did die young.
Well, yeah, he died young and he died deaf. He'd still been composing while he was deaf, which is remarkable. And again, so if you're saying you have a DNA for a guy and their DNA says there's no way he has any musical talent or very little, according to the DNA, and yet he's composing masterpieces when he's deaf. Huh? Oh yeah, he's got no talent.
Yeah, but you see, if you know how music goes, irrespective of whether you're deaf, in fact, actually, I've heard we'll go on to that in a second. Irrespective of if you know how music goes, you can visualize it, even if you are deaf, right? And there, again, I've also heard of deaf people actually responding to music.
Possibly, but basically, what this is saying is, well, deaf people can respond to the beat they can feel through the air, so the vibration they can respond to, but they can't respond to the musicality of it because they don't have the ability to distinguish the vibrations that are fluttering through the air.
Yeah, they're not distinguishing the notes, the individual notes, but they're responding to the vibration of the music through the ground, through the air, and other things. Yeah.
Well, I think Beethoven was doing a little bit more than that. I don't think he was just sitting there responding to vibrations and then composing a masterpiece. Beethoven's Fifth, Beethoven's Ninth.
He was
Beethoven's Sonata. Oh, I can hear this.
No, he's visualizing the music in his mind because he had the fortune to be, to not be deaf until later in his life, but he has the ability in his mind to visualize what the music sounds like and then could put it down on paper, irrespective of the fact that he could not then subsequently play it and hear it.
Sure sounds like a guy with no DNA that says he's a musician.
Yeah. Interesting.
So my point here is there's extreme limitation here. Now, what it tells us, one, if the DNA is correct, and if people with DNA like him most normally do not become musicians, are not predisposed to it, what it means is that you can learn all of those things that come naturally to others, and you can learn them well enough to match their abilities. Obviously, Beethoven being one of the greatest composers of all time, like when he's Bach and Beethoven and Mozart are the first three people you think of all the time when you think of a great composers. Roll over Beethoven, tell Tchaikovsky the news. That is from Chuck Berry. So he's number one person. So what it tells you that either the DNA is faulty, or the DNA tells you, irrespective of what your inclinations are at birth, you can learn music to the highest degree if you have no predisposition for it. I have a feeling that the DNA is not exactly correct here. They have to go back to the bone board, basically, and try to figure it out again.
Yeah, there's a heck of a lot more we need to actually learn about this before we can, before we can say that we're knowledgeable about DNA.
Yes, it was a genome-wide association study. Well, the genome-wide association study, I don't know. Mike Cushman says, I do not believe DNA is such precise science. We do not understand it like they are pretending. DNA can precisely put you where your genetic background is. It can do that very, very well. Hello, Karen. How you doing? So it can do that very, very well. DNA can tell you what kind of race you are, what kind of where your people came from, and all that. But when it comes to deciding whether you have a predisposition by checking your DNA and seeing you have a predisposition for musical talent, that's another thing. They can tell you that you have a certain predispositions for diseases, or they could tell you that
one thing. Disease is one thing because of the fact that with disease, we know we have started to look at certain aspects like that. That it might well be that they analyze my DNA and they analyze your DNA, and I've got a predisposition for disease A, and you've got a predisposition for disease B. And the idea being about that being that if you've got a predisposition for, let's say, cancer, they can potentially give you some corrective treatment that will reduce the possibility you will have cancer. Just because you have a predisposition for cancer doesn't mean that you will develop cancer.
Yes, but it's a good warning, and and it's a variety, a number of things that you can find out that you may be inclined to have liver disease. In this particular case, in his case, liver disease. You can find out if you're going to have a predisposition. Your DNA shows you have vulnerability to kidney disease or lung disease or a few other those things. But musical talent, that's a bit of a reach.
Yeah.
What else we got there?
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're moving on this one. We talked about this very briefly. So, Niagara Regional Police are investigating a report of sexual assault that occurred outside Niagara Falls apartment building early Sunday morning. As we said, this was Queen and Erie Street, where these, this allegedly took place. And further on, what Mike was basically saying here was shooting in Epworth Circle. Last night, and what you were saying about Saturday night, Saturday night, how okay, that's concerning.
Well, yeah, it's down at Queen and Erie. I have issue here of how they describe the guy. Remember last week we had, last week or the week before that, we had a Jamaican who had beat bail 3 times. He was a gun smuggler, and he sold illegal guns. He got a 9-year sentence in absentia, but he had been arrested 3 times and 3 times jumped bail. And when they described him, they showed a picture of him. Right, he's a typical black Jamaican guy, right? But in the description, they described him. Police describe him as a man, dark hair, tattoos, and brown eyes. They can't get around to tell you. I don't know. Why not just black man? They can do that in the States. They can't do it here. And they think it's like
they're saying light to medium skin tone here. 5'5".
Yeah, so couldn't they say it was an Asian or a South Asian or typical of that sort of,
or Latino maybe.
Or Italian even, I don't know, but
yeah, exactly. Light to medium skin tone doesn't mean a damn thing, right? He could be Latino, he could be could be Indian, as you say, could be Middle Eastern.
This time of year is unlikely to be a Caucasian, European Caucasian, because later in the summer, a European Caucasian could tan up pretty well to look something like that. But this time of year, no. So I would like a better description of people like this. If they have they at one time they couldn't even tell us that they wouldn't even say that there was a bunch of men and they were fighting and stabbing one another, and they happened to be South Asians. Well, so what? But they wouldn't say that. They'd say, 4 men wearing such and such, and
at night descriptions like that are actually light to medium skin tone. And when you're talking about nighttime descriptions, again, light to medium skin tone may mean a whole different things, because you're seen differently in lamplight at night than you are during the day.
Yeah, so I hate that when they feel that they have to remove some of the explanation or some description because we may have a reflex of prejudice. How about we have a reflex of finding out who that guy is? He's a sexual assault person. You want that person off the street. I don't know the color of the person he assaulted. I don't know anything about the person I assaulted. All I know is a light to medium sort of person attacked a woman, and we want that guy off the road.
Yeah, we shouldn't, unless it has specific bearing, we shouldn't need to know the any details about the particular person who was attacked, right? I don't think.
Well, that's my point. Yeah, that's my point. Like, they didn't describe her, and so you don't need to. But you do need to describe him in every detail possible, because you want him off that road.
Yeah. The other reason why you don't, it might come to a point where you're talking about a serial rapist who has a particular type where he's after dark-haired, medium tanned people, or ladies, with a particular age bracket or something like that, if he becomes a serial type rapist. But not at this stage. You need, as you said, more description about him.
You need everything going, and the problem is once a rapist, always a rapist until they're thrown in jail. And if they're assaulting people like this, then we're going to have a problem, and that rapist is going to pop up again, guaranteed. And they're going to get dangerous, and they might hurt or kill the woman that they attacked, because it's very typical that way.
Yeah.
We had a rapist in I forget what part of Southern Ontario. The rapist happened to be one of the migrant workers from the islands, and the woman that was raped and nearly killed by the migrant worker thought she had seen him somewhere working in the fields somewhere there. So what the police did was they took all the migrant workers and asked them to give a DNA test. Only 4 of the 100 refused. Of those 4, they were able to determine which one it was. But in the meantime, there was a big hoofah. Why should you do all that DNA test on black people? You're being super prejudiced. Well, she was raped by a black person who was a Jamaican or an island person that was obviously that. And can you imagine if a white cricket team from England went to Jamaica and one of those white persons attacked and raped a Jamaican person, and then said, "Well, I think he's part of the cricket team," and everybody says, "You're racist."
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you have to be practical. It's not being racist at all. It's being practical, and it's being about the nature of the individual, not the group.
Yeah. So, very, very clear descriptions of who the criminal is. Yeah. And I think our society's matured enough to realize that criminals come in every shape and size, every color under the book. What we want to do is we want to get a rapist off the street. We want him behind bars so he doesn't hurt anyone else. And you're not doing any favors to anyone by not describing him as completely as you possibly can. Now, I'm assuming they withheld some part of his ethnicity here, because that's what it sounds like. But they may not have. They may not have. But anyway.
Right. Well, if you've got information, I'm sticking it in the thing down beneath. All right.
Okay, so he's got a brown cable knit zip up sweater, black slush pants, a brown baseball cap. He's been seen running on foot. He's not a very big guy, 5'6".
Yeah, 5'5", 5'6". Yeah, not a very big guy. And
with an olive skin tone.
Yeah. According to the badly put together police report. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the best they can do. I don't know. I don't want to judge them on this, but I'm just saying that because we so frequently get that, like the guys that shot up the Kansas City Chiefs parade when they came back to Kansas City, and they had the parade. They had a shootout near the end of the parade. It was like days and days before they were to admit it that they were black guys having a fight, shooting one another, and they happened to take out somebody in between. My question was the sexual assault not at 3 a.m. Erie Avenue, where prostitutes take place often? Just asking. I'm not so sure. When did this say? It says just after 4 a.m. It was that police responded. So investigation woman was outside her apartment at 3 a.m. You're right. She may have been thought to be a hooker, but I didn't know hookers did their trade down there anymore.
I didn't think. Yeah, exactly. I didn't think they did anymore. Yeah, there was a time, of course, but yeah, not to my knowledge now. All right. Okay. So moving on. So no change in the interest rate as a Bank of Canada sticks at 5%. Right. Economists also predict cuts are going to be happening later in 2024, but could be higher than. But the rate could still remain higher than pre-pandemic.
I don't think we're in a very odd situation here with the economy. Well, in the States, I'll say the States, not so much here, but in the States where the economy is doing very well. The unemployment rate's doing very well. We also have a fairly decent unemployment rate. But what we can't do
about that. Talking about that, Dave, I recently saw, and I wish I'd just stopped and taken a photograph of it. I recently saw an Ontario advertisement that basically said that our employment rate is higher than ever before here in Ontario.
Well, we discussed this yesterday. What does that mean?
Yeah, and
what does it mean? All it means is we've got more people than, like, there is no explanation there. What it means is we have more people in Ontario than we've ever had before. Well, so of course we're going to have an unemployment rate.
Yeah.
But our unemployment figures are pretty good at around 5.8%, I think, in Ontario. And that's not bad historically. And that's not bad for this area either, historically, as we found out from Bradley, who claimed that was the same average here for the Niagara region. However, the Bank of Canada is sticking to the 5% rate because I tell you why, that inflation has not come down. The inflation was pretty high. It's come down. They want to get it down, I think, to 2% or 2.5%. Something like that. Well, they can't get it under 2.8%, no matter what they do.
I was going to say it's hovering right now at about 3%, but yes, right, it's bounced down a couple of times to about 2.8%. Yeah,
right, and they judge this based on, and the same thing is happening in the States right now. They can't get theirs below 2.8%, and they have the means of which to decide that. Basically, it's a grocery basket. Basically, they try to determine how much people need to how much food costs are, how much fuel costs are, how much heating, electrical, and all that. And they put that all in the basket, average it out, and see what's happening. And of course, we can see that the food prices and all other things are going up, up, up. And as long as that's happening, you're not going to get the Canada rate to break any. If anything, it should have gone up to 6% to put a real brakes on it, but they felt they can't do that. And the reason I think the United States and Canada both have trouble getting inflation down to a comfortable level is because they left it too late when they started to manage it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say according to the diagram in this particular picture, the inflation rate pre-pandemic was at about just prior to the pandemic, was about 1.8%, raising to its worst at 3%, but averaging around about the 2% mark.
And they want it down to 2%, I think. I think the sweet zone is 2%.
Yeah.
And I remember when it came to a decision whether the bank is going to lower the interest rate, when it was at 2.5%, they said, no, we can't do it yet. We need to get it down to 2%. That's the sweet part. That's the sweet zone. And if they don't do that, you risk having runaway inflation again. Right now, because we having and this is going to be a big topic coming up. You can be sure because the government just raised the price of gasoline, put a carbon tax on it, which will filter down throughout society. It will affect farmers, and then it'll affect
which arguably is inflationary.
Yes, it is inflationary, and this is, and as we've discussed yesterday, the press is doing a terrible job on this because they cannot investigate well enough to tell you whether or not it is or isn't as bad as it sounds. And some press says, well, it's not as bad, but they don't give you real figures. They don't give you good investigative reporting. The right-wing press says, well, it's really bad for you. But they don't come down with real figures. I mean, they do have some, but they cherry pick them. The left cherry picks them, the right cherry picks them, but there's nobody independent wanting to take that on.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that, and what I found since it's come up over and over again, and I've watched many interviews and things like that, for the first time, I couldn't see the worth of it. I can a little bit now, because they said it won't produce any results for several years down the road. You have to keep nudging people towards choosing more environmentally friendly means of car travel, heating houses, and all that other stuff. But it's doomed to fail, in my particular opinion, because you can't force people. And that's what they're trying to do, is force people, and people hate to be forced. And
it's the same with the interest rate at the moment. By just this graph alone, which they've got in this particular article, it looks like the inflation rate is being triggered more now by Canada's Bank of Canada interest rate than it is by other things.
Yeah, but that's a bit of a fallacy, because if you do not have that, if you open the floodgates, then it's going to be much, much worse. You're going to have something like is happening in Turkey, where they took no precautions against inflation, and all of a sudden their dinar, or whatever their currency is worth like half or half of what it normally did. It's worth 40% as it did before the inflation hit. So
okay.
So it says, Randy says, you can't get inflation down when food and fuel prices are going up. Precisely. Greedy corporate will not return prices back to normal after COVID. Yeah, you're right about that. And right now we are in runaway inflation, and that's why they're not going to reduce the 5%. At least it won't be as bad as the 80s when they put it up to 18-19%. I remember those.
11,000 more per year for your grocery budget this year over last year.
11,000.
I've seen that report somewhere. Yeah, I saw that report. Right. Again, one of these economic things, they're not necessarily based in reality, because, hey, there are things that are going by the wayside. That 11,000 is based upon, hey, the family has to buy this much groceries, and not taking into consideration, actually, now you're saying, well, do I really want that? Do I really want that item? Could we do with one less can of beans?
Yeah, and get some starchy stuff for filler instead. And that's the problem, that you get a lot of cheap white bread or starchy filler stuff that's cheap off the shelf, and you feed your kids that. It's not exactly healthy, but it fills their stomach. It's cheaper to go to McDonald's and get a burger than to buy good food.
The report, Laurie Parliament corrected what I was saying. The report was 11,000 versus 4 years ago.
Okay, so that sounds a little bit better. Not a whole lot better, but a little bit better if you space it over 4 years.
But again, how many people are paid 11,000 more than they were 4 years ago. That ain't happening.
Well, there's certain things you can't avoid buying, obviously, and
yeah,
and I don't know, 3
right.
Well, so you're looking at like increase of $2,700 to $800, $2,750 per year for that's tough. Inflation is on the consumer prices. The idea being raising interest rates was always to reduce credit spending by consumers.
Yeah,
and that's supposed to slow down the economy.
Yeah, but if you've got like $15,000 worth of credit spending, you're not going to stop that in an instant, are you? Because even if you're not buying anything more on that credit card, you still owe $15,000.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that's a reality of that situation. The credit spending might stop, but the credit card debt still exists.
Well, I'm saying I could see things getting even worse, that the food bank is going to start charging interest.
There you go. All right. So that's an interesting one. First Nation leaders hold emergency meeting in Ottawa on the mental health crisis.
Well, that one goes back a ways. Yeah, I put that one in a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. So you did. It is a while ago. Why is that on here?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That one I put probably 2 weeks ago, maybe at least last week. If you want to talk about it, we can. Like, it's a little out of my memory now, but the mental health issues of course, that's commonly talked about all the time now, particularly with homeless situation. Mental health is always coming into it, but the Indian nations, or not the Indian nations, but the native indigenous peoples have called upon the government to help them out. They can no longer deal with the situations they have found. As a matter of fact, this goes way back, because I remember a television report on it as well, that it's gone so far out of hand that the people who are nurses and doctors and stuff like that are always at fear that they're going to be attacked. It has a lot to do with drugs, but it not necessarily has to do with drugs. It has to do with just people just absolutely not knowing what to do. I think probably we should leave it till later so we can come back to it.
You're right. That is an old one. My streaming's out of date. Hey, this is really kind of weird, because my Facebook isn't up to date. You're right. That was back in January, and I was not looking at the actual dates and times on the thing.
Hit refresh. Hit refresh.
I don't have a refresh. A refresh here. Yeah.
So what ones do you have? Do you have the ones about the Havana syndrome? There's an update on that I sent. I sent the 100 million, which we should talk about now, is the $100 million spent by the feds for asylum seekers. Let's do that one.
Send me.
It's very local.
Put the link into my into the chat. Right. See if I can open it back up again, because it's certainly not working. Somehow my situation is that I'm out.
Well, anyway, right now there's the title of the one I think we should talk about says that more than $100 million spent by feds to house asylum seekers in Niagara Falls. So I'll try to send that to you again.
Yeah, send it to me right now. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll open it up. I hadn't realized that these were old articles. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's kill that one.
All right, let's see if we can send this to you.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I got a message which
Okay. Oh, let's see if I get this out here. Did you get this one? Oh no, it didn't come through. That was a different one. Huh.
I didn't get anything.
I don't know what's going on. It's sync now. Okay.
But if I sync now, it's not causing me. Okay, 177.
Anyway, I'll go on this now. We've had a report.
Now, okay. So I've got up to date information. Now I've got Monday 19. So I've got
You got the ones I sent you,
Havana syndrome. Okay, let me get this.
The one after that, I think we should talk about is the one that says more than 100 million spent by feds to house asylum seekers in Niagara Falls. That's February to February. As a matter of fact, it's more like $115 million.
More than 100 million spent. Okay, let me bring that one back up. Thank you, and I'll bring that one back up.
It's local. That's why I thought it'd be.
No, absolutely. I don't know what the hell happened with this as to why I'm.
Anyway, the federal government has spent more than $100 million housing asylum seekers in Niagara Falls hotels. Newly released figures from Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada come after Niagara Falls Conservative MP Tony Baldinelli filed an order paper about the issue in House of Commons. In other words, he's probably asked them to fess up. How much is this costing us?
Yeah.
So they had to come up with it. So you've got nearly 5,000 asylum seekers from February 23 to February 24, and it's cost $115 million. Now, the local people have said, local politicians like Diodati have said that that's only the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of that money, the money that's being spent in and around the community to try to accommodate all these people. We do know that they just flushed, when they first came, they flushed out large sections of Salvation Army, Project Share, and other places for their boots and coats. We do know that the federal government did not let us know that there were going to be no more kids coming to our schools. They kept it as quiet as possible because they were afraid of the asylum seeker reflex, anti-asylum seeker reflex, or whatever they called it. So they didn't tell anyone, which left our schools unprepared, which meant that people like us and the Rotary Club had to come up with money for those kids in the schools and for their food programs and that. So Diodati's right in this respect, that the community has come up with a lot more money than the feds have. Now, the feds are unwilling to talk about this. And this is what Diodati's saying too. He's saying, we're willing to do our part in this, but we got it all. You're dumping this on us, and we're not having a dialogue. You're not talking to us.
Yeah.
And Baldinelli, of course, he had to do it. Of course, the government's not going to supply this information without being forced to. So that's what Baldinelli did. They'd rather not have it. He says the top 10 countries of origin here are Nigeria, Venezuela, Kenya, Turkey, Colombia, Afghanistan, Uganda, Haiti, Pakistan, and Congo. Well, Nigeria is is a fairly prosperous African country. I suspect that most of the Nigerians are coming here because they are economic refugees. Yeah. Venezuelans, economic refugees as well, I think. Kenya, economic refugees, really. Turkey, yes. Now, Colombia, Afghanistan, Uganda, Haiti, those four there, yeah, definitely, probably a lot of legitimate political.
But even Pakistan and Congo, there's potential legitimate reasons to be a political refugee.
And Haiti is a complete mess. So if you could get out of Haiti, you're going to get out of Haiti. Now, but my problem with this, and it's not mentioned here, that just about everybody that got here had to pay people smugglers, and people smugglers are criminals. They're organized crime. They make a lot of money getting these people here. And most of these people who did get here had enough money to pay them. To pay them a lot of money to get them here. And of course, a lot of these people came from the Roxham Road thing, because our pal New York City, who is a sanctuary city, said, "Oh, come here, we'll take you." But then when they started to come in massive amounts of numbers, they say, "Well, you know what? There's this really nice place up north called Canada. We're going to put you on a bus and send you there. How about that? They'll love you." And we did love them. We did love them. 5,000 of them cost us $115 million. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, as our mayor has said. And in this particular case, I believe him. I don't think he's posturing or exaggerating. I don't think there's any hyperbole there, having been part of Kiwanis and seeing a little bit of it. Yeah.
Let's have a quick comment. A comment in here. St. Catherine's Liberal MP Chris Biddle said the housing of asylum seekers in Niagara Falls has come at a sizable cost, but that at the end of the day, we'll have a group of people who contribute back to Canada who will get jobs and will work hard for this country.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Like he says, well, look at Niagara. If we didn't have Ukrainians or Italians or Germans coming at different times, but those people came here and they weren't on the dole, were they? No. They were refugees, and a lot of them were refugees and stuff, but they took minimum amounts of money from the government. They were supported by their own communities, and they went to work right away. But there was a lot of opportunity to work in those days. Can you take an unskilled worker from Haiti and give him a job where he could expect to live? Like, I mean, people who live here and got good jobs can't afford houses. How these people are supposed to do that without being on the dole forever from Canada?
This is one of the problems, is that 100 million we're talking about is the cost of housing these people in Niagara Falls hotels. Nice for the Niagara Falls hoteliers to be getting their chunk of that. But not so nice in terms of the federal spend, because that's not about, those people having homes that they can afford.
Yes, and also we have this event coming up, this Eclipse event, which we could have sold a lot more rooms to people who pay rather than government paying. You see, you could have got a whole lot more rooms being sold out, like, by keeping them here is costing us rather than not making money. If we have people come to town, pay for their rooms, that stimulates the economy without putting a drain on the government. But right now we're just kind of taking the money from Peter and giving it to Paul and back and forth.
Yeah.
Now Paul Donnelly, now of course he's Biddle, of course, was not going to be the person that looked into the asylum seekers and what kind of economic effect it has, because it's better not to say anything as far as he can see. You know what? We don't want to have a reflex. The people of Niagara Falls, we can't trust them to have an anti-asylum seeker reflex, so we just won't tell them. Now, Baldinelli, of course, being from the different party, he brings it up, and he's saying, now Biddle says, I know people are facing economic challenges, very easy to blame others. it's not refugees that are causing inflation and all that. Well, nobody says they are, but they are causing a lot of money and upset to the area. Baldinelli, on the other hand, he is saying that our system was once the envy of the world, was now filled with fraud, chaos, backlogs, delays, and disadvantaging genuine immigrants. And
the other
on
question
top of that,
here,
Prime Minister Trudeau's housing crisis has forced refugees to live under bridges, hotels, indefinitely, all cost hundreds of $millions at the expense of the taxpayer.
Yeah, and they're also saying that the Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada does not monitor the location of claimants once they leave hotels, right? In response to Baldinelli's inquiry about this.
Well, so I'm not sure they have to find everywhere they're going all the time. I mean, certainly, if we can fit them into the workforce, yeah, that would be great. But how easy is that actually going to be when they have language difficulties? Obviously, the Nigerians will be able to speak English. Many of the Pakistanis would probably be able to too.
Oh,
so you're having a lot of different people there.
Kenya will also speak very good. Yes, Kenyans will speak very good English.
The Kenyans too. So you're going to have some people who speak English well, but you get the vast majority of them can't.
Yeah,
and they look as if to be mostly unskilled labor. And of course, it mentions Diodati says the Niagara Falls arrangements caused some concern with local officials. Interview, Diodati says $100 million, just the tip of the iceberg. Adding figures don't include costs to integrate newcomers into the community. Yeah, exactly right. Like, as I said before, being part of the charity organizations around here, we're Kiwanis, and we've seen that. I mean, we children didn't have enough to eat in schools. They don't have books, and because the government can't suddenly produce those things when they they're not coming. Diodati said that the Niagara expects to do our part. It has a significant inventory of hotel rooms. However, he raised concerns of the lack of dialogue between the federal government and the municipality. Yeah, they're kind of, I don't like that either. They kind of dumped them here and ran away. And it was really hard getting information from them. Pretty much what they said is, we're going to put them here, but don't mention it. Don't mention it because we don't want anyone to know. We want, just slowly, surely, because we don't want this. And then once they came, they said, okay, well, it's your problem now.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, and like Biddle says, well, they're not going to all stay here. They're going to go somewhere else to live. Well, where are they going to live? Right now, they got the hotel rooms here. Where the government going to put them? How many years are they going to have to stay here before they can be well enough introduced into into society? And I'm sure the Nigerians will probably go to Toronto, where there's a Nigerian community somewhere there. They'll feel more comfortable. The Haitians too would probably go there. They may even go to Montreal, where there's more Haitians. Sooner or later they'll begin to disperse. But I bet you we get left with the majority of them. And where are they going to live? That's my question.
Well, and essentially, yes, that's always the biggest question, because at the moment, while they're continuing to get these supports from the federal government to live in hotel rooms, one of the things that, as soon as they start to get jobs and that sort of thing, then the question is, well, surely now that we should stop paying their hotel bills, and I get it. We should be stopping paying those hotel bills, and so
well, the anti-refugee reflex is much, much worse if you gloss it over and pretend it's not there, and then suddenly it comes out. Like, the federal government hasn't been upfront with us by reporting to us what's this going to cost. So Baldinelli had to go and find out. And when he did, it says it's cost us $115 million just for 5,000 people, just here in Niagara. 5,000 people, just 5,000 people in Niagara, $115 million over 1 year. That's $210 per person every day, at least. And yet there is no plan to sort of integrate them into the community or to find them jobs or anything else like that. And you are going to get an anti-refugee reflex, because what you do is you pretend it's not there, and all of a sudden it explodes and everybody says, what $115 million in 1 year? You can't keep that stuff hidden and hope that if you hide it, you're not going to get an anti-refugee reflex. You're more likely going to get an anti-refugee reflex if you keep hiding it or pretending it's not there.
And again, Randy West makes a point. There's a 10-year wait, as announced recently, to get low-income families into affordable housing. And what happens? You certainly can't jump refugees to the front of the line.
Yeah. So what's the government? What's the alternative for the government? Keep them in hotels in Niagara or other places.
Yeah.
Now, I've said this before. Wouldn't it be best for all the homeless people in the Niagara region, all 650 or 700 of them, to go over to the States and then come back as refugee seekers and then be put up in a hotel room?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When that Roxham Road thing, that was my suggestion, tongue in cheek, I would say, is put all the homeless people in a bus, take them into the United States and then back through Roxham Road and call them refugee seekers. And then they'd have to put them up in a hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah.
So I'm not so sure, and my biggest problem here is there are people trying to get into this country legally all over the world.
Yes.
And what the people smugglers, the organized criminals who get these people in here and get a lot of money from them, making that idiotic. If you really want to get to Canada, I'll get you there, but it's going to cost you. You can sit and wait for years and years with your application in the Nigeria consulate, whatever. Or I tell you what, you come my way, and you got enough money, I'll get you in, and then you'll be an asylum seeker. And then they'll give you money and they'll put you up in a hotel room for 5 years until you get, or even longer, until you get until you get a job or whatever else.
Yeah.
What they're telling everybody in the world is, if you really want to get here, and you want to get here fast, don't go through the regular process, because once you get here through the regular process, we're not going to treat you as well as we do for someone who cheats and pays criminals to get you there.
It's actually, and of course, generally speaking, I would understand why many Canadians would become anti-refugee. It's not they're anti-immigrant; it's they become anti-refugee because you're suddenly allowing a whole bunch of people to jump the queue.
That's the point. And if there were real political refugees or they were really at risk, but I just, okay, you've got a point. But most of these countries here, they are mostly coming as economic refugees. And let's face it, we would all do the same thing. I would. If I was a Haitian, a young man in Haiti right now, I'd scat. I'd get out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah.
If I was somebody from Honduras, I'd make my way up to the border, pay the coyotes what I had to pay them, get into Canada, and the first thing I'd have is make sure my wife had a baby, so we'd have a chance to stay here. Immigrants used to have to be sponsored. That was the way to integrate opportunity. Yeah, our immigration system there's a couple problems with it, like the legal one. Usually you have to have some sort of skills that you come with, and you can't, so we're not taking the low skill workers normally. That's of course offset by the illegals that come in, but typically we're not supposed to be taking the low-skilled workers. We're supposed to be taking people that can come in and blend in easily or quicker with skills. But that also is a big brain drain to other countries. So we take the doctors out of India, we take them out of Pakistan, we take them out of Nigeria. Well, that's a brain drain. And what happens, that affects those countries. They educate their young men and women as doctors or lawyers or whatever else, or engineers, and then they come here. And then so they're left without an engineer or a doctor. In Ghana, it used to be like they were supposed to come back for 2 years. Like, so they went away to become doctors, and they're supposed to come back and serve in their own country for 2 years. Well, most of them didn't really make it to a year before they scrammed again. You know, and nobody can follow up on that kind of thing, you know.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we're over time on this particular.
Yeah, as we were yesterday too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's obviously
we're just way too interesting.
Showing that we've got a kind of lot to be talking about, and we've still got time for tomorrow. Now we've found all those additional articles rather than going back in time. Yeah, hey, that was bad, going back in time. All right, but we got through it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And Dave?
Time seems to be an issue none these days. Well, it was too many leap seconds you subtracted there, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.